Hey everybody, welcome back to Movie Master, where we rank, review, trailer react, and talk news about movies, TV shows, and video games. Now, to keep this MCU ranking list train going on and on, I thought I'd rank every phase of the MCU's movies so far. Yes, that even includes Phase 4, with its so far film released and TV show airing, Miss Marvel and Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. I will obviously update the list by the end of the year, but for now, those are all the lists. I'll be doing each phase of the MCU by itself and then ranking the entirety of the phase of the MCU's movies. The Disney Plus shows have already got on their own list, and I may indeed one day rank the Netflix and ABC shows. But for now, let's do phase 1. This will only be from Iron Man 1 to Avengers. Now remember, this is my opinion, so you do not have to agree with me, and spoilers if you guys have not seen them, but since these movies are like 13, 14-year-old movies, I'm not going to really tell you no spoilers, because you have 14 years to catch up on some of these movies, so ain't my problem. And I missed the part. When's that my problem? So with that, let's get into it at number 6. So number 6 is Iron Man 2, released in 2010 and directed by Jon Favreau. Now, this film, I do like it. I think it is a good movie. Now, I'm actually one of the people who actually quite likes this movie. Now, the reason I may agree that it is not the best film in Phase 1, even though I do like all the movies in Phase 1, is that I will agree the film is cluttered with so many plot lines, they don't know what they want to do with the story. We have the main plot line we have the main Iron Man, we have many plot lines. Here's some of the examples of what we have in the story. We have the S.H.I.E.L.D. plot line. We have Tony Stark dying plot line. We have the whole Tony dealing with his alcohol. We have Tony's friends we have Tony hating his friends and all that. Well, you know what I mean. Tony making his friends hate him. We're having Tony and Pepper having issues. Tony having issues with his dad. Tony having issues with his heart. Tony having issues with his Iron Man armors. A bunch of stuff all in one movie. And also not the fact that it's trying to set up an Avengers film. So the plot kind of feels very incohesive in bits. Originally, Iron Man 2 had never had any, without the S.H.I.E.L.D. plotline, and Black Widow wouldn't even need to make an appearance. The film was going to lift off the crux of what the stories were already around, but, well, Marvel, wanting to set up an Avengers film, and only hinting about S.H.I.E.L.D. in the first Iron Man film, wanted it to be more set up so that Thor, and movies like Thor, and Captain America and Avengers and onward could follow through with that plotline. So they said, hey, yeah, why not just force this in there? And Jon Favreau didn't want to do that. Originally, he wanted the film to be released around 2011 or 2012, but Marvel wanted it to match their schedule, with Thor and Captain America First Avenger coming out later, with Avengers and set for 2012 release date that they wanted to do. Not to mention, they wanted to set up S.H.I.E.L.D. for Avengers, so overall they had to just... Yeah, this, for a lot of people, was a very disappointing film, but I don't mind it at all, and I quite like it. Nonetheless, at number 5 is Captain America The First Avenger. Now, believe me, I like this movie. I really do think I like the period piece it is. I love the style and the way it's made. I'm a sucker for origin stories. I love origin stories. I love the fact we get scrawny boy to a big muscular man. We see him go from a skinny dude to a sexy Chris guy. So yeah, and it's a really cool story, and the love story between Steve and Peggy's done really well, and the ending scene when the plane sinks in there and Cap has to sacrifice himself is really sad and cool. But what I really like is it sets him up for Avengers, and this was pretty much the pinnacle movie. Well, not the pinnacle, it was the prequel movie. It was the penultimate movie to Avengers. Whereas Iron Man introduced the MCU, Incredible Hulk, Iron Man 2, Thor introduced new characters and expanded the MCU. This film not only introduced a new character, but was the penultimate area to Avengers 1. But it's a good movie, but there are a few weaknesses. I will say it does have some rewatchability, but I find the movies from 4 and onward much more ones I would rather rewatch. I love Captain America though, but I had to pick a movie to put here, and Captain America got here. This film was one I wanted to put near low, but I thought, hey, why not put it higher due to my fan liking of it? At number 4 is The Incredible Hulk, released in 2008, directed by Louis Leterrier. Now, sorry if I've butchered his name. I will try my best the next time I rank the next phase of the MCU to remind you that I will now pronounce his name better. The story behind The Incredible Hulk is that originally, the guy who directed, I think, Leterrier, whatever his name is, Leterrier, or just say Leterrier, wanted to direct an Iron Man film. But since Jon Favreau had already made one and he was doing the sequel, they offered him Hulk. So he accepted Hulk and made The Incredible Hulk. But they wanted to capture the style of the 1970s show, Lou Ferrigno and Bill Bixby, and even the cartoon that was made in the 80s and 90s. So they did. They set up a plotline of Bruce already having his powers, and him on the run from the U.S. Army and really just running away from the U.S. Army and turning into the Hulk. And when he turns into the Hulk, him ripping his clothes off slowly and all that was an idea that they had. Now, there is even a stupid theory. There's a lot of people who, this is pretty much, and I would agree, this is the black sheep of the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe. The reason why is these factors. One, it is a completely different tone from Iron Man and the rest of the movies in its first phase. Two, this is one of the only MCU movies to not at all get a sequel. 3. None of the characters in this film, except for General Ross, would appear later on, but at context at the point in time, from Iron Man 2 until Captain America Civil War, no characters for Hulk besides Bruce Banner himself, who was recasted with Mark Ruffalo instead of Edward Norton, who played him in this film, would continue on, and well, people would not think it's canon. There's even a theory out there that Incredible Hulk's events happened in the MCU, but with Mark Ruffalo. It's merely a dumb theory to say that, oh, this explains why the actors changed. Personally, I just believe that he went morphing from Edward Norton to Mark Ruffalo. Originally, the director did want Mark Ruffalo to play the Hulk. But like with Iron Man, Marvel wanted big-name actors to kick off this franchise. When they were doing Iron Man, they wanted Tom Cruise for the role. But a few issues like Tom Cruise wanting to see his face and other factors, many other factors about the fact was when he was even wanting to jump onto this, let him to drop it out, and him and Marvel and Tom Cruise splitting their ways. And Marvel going with the risk, Jon Favreau and Marvel going with the risk of Robert Downey Jr. and making Marvel movie history. With Incredible Hulk, same thing. Louis Leterrier wanted Mark Ruffalo. And they said, nah, let's get a big name actor. So they chose Edward Norton. But Edward Norton said yes, he would accept it if he could make alterations to the script. Now, this led to him making many alterations to the script. One alteration was how the Hulk and Bruce were portrayed. He had planned that he would do 4 films, because Incredible Hulk was planned to be a 4-film series, and he signed on a 3-film contract for The Incredible Hulk, Avengers 1, and Incredible Hulk 2. The idea is that he wanted to slowly unveil more about the Hulk, and that he wanted that they were even going to set up Leader to be the villain of the sequel. And yeah. And they were going to plan it to be a 4-film franchise, but, well, yeah, unfortunately it didn't happen. Overall, I love this film. I really like it. I love the vibe. I love, adore the Hulk design in this film. I'll put a picture up right now. It looks badass. It looks cool. It screams a big, humongous giant monster that me and my family would run away from. Now, my mom loves the Hulk. She's loved him for years as a comic book character. She's looked at some of the comics. She's watched some of the TV. She's watched both the TV shows that came out. One made by Disney, one made by Marvel in the 80s and 90s. And she's even watched all the movies so far. She hasn't watched the weird Lou Ferrigno, Bill Bixby trilogy of films. But she has watched The Incredible Hulk and Hulk 2003 and the film. In fact, they even considered bringing back Eric Bana for Incredible Hulk 2. Well, not Incredible Hulk 2, Incredible Hulk. But they decided, Eric Bana said nah, and Marvel thought, let's move on with a different actor, and then they went to the whole Mark Ruffalo and Edward Norton debate. And again, another reason people don't think this is canon is, well, Edward Norton, Mark Ruffalo. You would have to be a very old MCU fan to realize that, yeah, Mark Ruffalo was not at all the Hulk. Before him, there was Edward Norton. Because there's been 2 people in my class in school that say, oh, yo, I can beat you in the superhero quiz, and I've beaten both of them in those quizzes. Because here's the thing, I'm not a big one, but in my school I'm quite a superhero geek. There's only a few people that can actually match up to me when it comes to my geekiness for superheroes. That's one of my friends, Kaden, my mother, 2 of my teachers, and another friend of mine who I see at school. And he also happens to work at one of the coolest places, being McDonald's. McDonald's is cool, okay? I reference McDonald's because it's cool. I like McDonald's, but I can't go there because it takes a lot of time. Yeah, just anywho, my parents don't go there anymore, okay? But I still go there nowadays. Nonetheless, overall, I like The Incredible Hulk. And a lot of people around me have wondered, like, why can't we watch it on streaming? It turns out the reason Incredible Hulk is not allowed to be watched in any kind of way is that, well, Universal bought the rights to the Hulk. That's why they made the 2003 film Ang Lee's Hulk. But when they failed to make a sequel before 2005, the rights reverted back to Marvel. But Universal kept the distributing rights. So Marvel could have done this back in 2012 and 13. They could have produced, written, brought back Mark Ruffalo, brought back brought back William Hurt as Thaddeus Ross, and brought back Liv Tyler as Betty Ross, done all that, written a Hulk film, shot the film, and then set it up, do all the VFX post-production bullshit, and try to release it. But Universal would say, nope, you're denied. Because, well, Universal owned the distributing rights, so they get the first say on whether or not a Hulk film could be released. And not to mention, after they made this movie, the next movie, Iron Man, in 2009, Disney bought Marvel, which likely meant, I believe, in my opinion, Disney wouldn't have wanted to try and bank or work with Disney, considering that Disney was one of their biggest rivals at the time. There are many rivals Universal's had over the years, but Disney and Warner Brothers and many others, obviously, but Disney is one of their biggest rivals. So I don't think they wanted to try and give access to Disney to use the Hulk. In the end, as we know, the Hulk got a different world in the MCU. This movie in general is good. I'll give it a good 9 out of 10. The post-credit scene's a bit off, and yes, there are a few ways you can connect it to the wider MCU. The vehicles, the little sound blaster things that weaken the Hulk with sound nullifyingness with Stark Industries. SHIELD makes the first appearance in the MCU. Well, not first appearance, but the logo makes an appearance. General Ross reappears in future films. The final battle is referenced in Avengers. Not to mention, they also reference this in the What If episode. Even though it's not canon, we see this event happen in a What If episode. Along with that, Abomination, who appeared in this film, is referenced in the Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. show. Not canon, but here's a canon fact. He's appearing in the She-Hulk series and already appeared in Shang-Chi. So yeah, overall, I will say this film's good. 9 out of 10, and it's a good movie. But the disconnection from the MCU, the whole Edward Norton debacle, has made this film in a very hard film to place. The reason I took so long to talk about this film has quite an interesting history in the MCU. And if you really stop to think about it, this movie has one of the most interesting stories about many of the behind-the-scenes secrets of the Marvel Universe. Well, to rephrase that, basically, this has a very fascinating story from the MCU. So that you didn't hear me go, when I was stuttering like 50 times. Number 3 is Thor, released in 2011, directed by Kenneth Branagh and starring Chris Hemsworth. For once, a movie where I do not butcher the director's name. God, I butcher so much moldy names. Why am I not surprised I butchered the dude who directed the Incredible Hulk movie? Nonetheless, Thor, a lot of people find this movie boring. Even one of the people who's one of my friends that I chat to say, not really interested in it. I will not divulge their name just because, I want to let them, I don't want to really embarrass their name and leak their name on live television. Well, not live television, leak their name onto the internet. When, well, I don't want to. But overall, one of my teachers who I love to chat to about movies, and my mum, all love this movie. Personally, one reason I do love it, and they love it too, is the Norse mythology. I've never really looked into Norse mythology, but my mum loves Norse mythology. That's why, I won't even show you, but I'll one day show you in the next video, there's a long little shelf of DVDs, and one of them DVDs my mum bought, before I took her entire Marvel collection and made it my own, was the Thor film. She bought it because she's a big fan of Norse mythology. And since she already watched Iron Man 1, loved it. Iron Man 2, liked it. No, Iron Man 2, The Incredible Hulk, loved it. And then Iron Man 2, and liked it. She thought, hey, why not give it a shot with Thor and Captain America? And so watched it. Also, she had the mindset that, hey, yo, why don't I just buy all these MCU movies? Because, well, might as well complete my set. So yeah, she bought it and she watched it. As a kid, I never thought I would like it. But I watched it about, shall we say, like, years later, in 2019, I rewatched it and went, oh my god, this is awesome. I think the Norse mythology is done so well, although the excessive Dutch angles, which is just basically me flipping the camera like this, these happen for like different sorts, like they'll go on a Dutch angle like that, or like that, or like that, for like several different points in the film, and it's actually really funny in the sense of it. So yeah, overall it's a unique film in the MCU, and I really quite like it. It introduces the Norse mythology and the ideas of Thor and all that in the MCU, and gives a really exciting introduction to Thor that eventually continue, but Thor the Dark World would utterly make into a big fat giant fart. And yeah, Kenneth Branagh did indeed not return for Thor 2, and well, he said that he left because, well, it took a lot of time and effort to make this movie, so he decided to drop out and let Patty Jenkins take over Thor 2. And that is a story for another time. Moving on to the next one, and number 2, the runner-up is one of my favorite Phase 1 movies, is the OG Iron Man movie. Now, in general, one of my friends is a big Iron Man fan. Personally, I've liked Iron Man. I've never loved him, but I've loved Iron Man. I've liked Iron Man's character. I love Batman, Spider-Man, Flash, Ben 10, but I've never really, I liked Iron Man though. I like Iron Man. I may have said I love him, but I like the character. But yeah, overall, this movie is good as a movie its own. It's 10 out of 10 for me, in my opinion, as a film. Because what I really think it works well as is that, well, at the time, Marvel was taking a big risk here, people. Cinematic universes weren't common. Yeah, Christopher Reeves went to Tim Burton to say, hey, yo, can I be in the Batman 89 movie? nothing happened. Or Supergirl being a spin-off movie creating its own series. Again, a cinematic universe, starting up a cinematic universe. There's been many attempts to make a cinematic universe off these ideas. Even like the Lou Ferrigno Incredible Hulk film was gonna, Lou Ferrigno Incredible Hulk series is gonna cross over with the Nicholas Hammond Spider-Man series in the 70s. But it never happened. And then we're gonna try and make a 70s, 80s style like Avengers. But it never happened. And overall, what Iron Man does well is it works well as a film. It's why I think it works so well as a film. Like, you could watch this and the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe couldn't have existed, and this movie worked as it. Like, they took a big risk. Not only with, again, a director who hadn't exactly the best rep recently, Jon Favreau, not the bad, but his recent movies weren't really the biggest successes. Not only that, they were banking a heck of a lot of money on this. If 5 movies weren't made by 2012, Paramount was going to strip Marvel of all their rights. Marvel was going to give all the rights to the characters to Paramount for free. If Iron Man or 5 movies by 2011 or 2012 weren't made. So yeah, there's a lot of pressure riding on this. Not to mention, they were casting an actor that wasn't really popular in the public media. Now, as we know Robert Downey Jr. He plays a very beat-up scrapper Sherlock Holmes. He plays Doolittle, the Doolittle film that I haven't even seen, and of course, Iron Man, one of his most iconic roles. Now, at the time, Robert Downey Jr. had a very bad rep. He had been in jail many times. He did a lot of cocaine, a lot of meth, and he hadn't really had the best career. Now, he was like Johnny Depp, actually, back in the 90s, and a very skinny, very baggy clothing-like look that many 1990s boys had back at the time and dressed like that in movies. He also had many reports of hopping into other people's beds in the middle of night, driving around naked in a convertible, breaking into someone's house dressed as Wonder Woman. Many different things happened to this guy over the course of his life, and overall just sent him to go down in the drain. But after confessing that he wanted to be together with his wife, the wife said she'd be with him if he got rid of the drugs. So, Robert Downey Jr. literally went out to the river, dumped all the drugs in the river, and went and flipped his life around. And eventually, he got called about the role by Jon Favreau. Jon Favreau noticed that there were similar connections between him and Tony Stark. So went, hey, why not cast him? Marvel wasn't wanting to cast him. As I already said before early in the video, they wanted Tom Cruise. But as you know, that never really worked out. So he went, hey, I have this Robert Downey Jr. guy. Would he work for the movie? And they went, fine, let's give him a shot. And they were thinking, Marvel was thinking at first, do we really want to cast him? Because, well, we didn't get Tom Cruise. Let's go find someone else. So Terrence Howard, who's playing Rhodey at the time, went, hey, I'll cut half of my pay salary in half. You can give more to Robert Downey and see if he wants to jump on. This isn't exactly what they said. I'm framing it how I would say it. And so they asked him again, and he said yes. And so he took the role and became Iron Man. Now Terrence Howard left the MCU because, well, they wanted to chop his salary in half. Because Terrence Howard even called Robert Downey Jr. to convince him to get it. Another factor. But when Iron Man 2 came around, Terrence Howard called Robert Downey Jr. to try and help him because, well, he was getting his salary cut in half. But in the end, when they wouldn't work with him, he said nah and left. So from Incredible Hulk and onwards, after Incredible Hulk, from Iron Man 2 and onwards, Marvel knew they needed to secure contracts with their actors so they could reappear. Because as you know, like in the comics, a lot of times there's times when characters come back along. So they would have had to do it like the Marvel Comics. The MCU would have needed characters to return when they needed them for storylines, and so that their schedule wouldn't interrupt the films. And with that, the movie overall is a good movie. It works well as a film. Like I said with The Incredible Hulk, it has an interesting, fascinating behind-the-scenes story about it. And the movie works as a film. It works. The story is great. It tells the origin story of a really good guy. And what I really think, Stan Lee created Iron Man along with the co-creator, whoever he was. I will remember his name by the next video. He created him to show the good and bad us humans can do to each other. He wanted to, because at the time war was a big thing during the 60s. It was the Vietnam War, all that the energy crisis. Things were going on, and well, Stan Lee wanted to create characters that represented what the real world was. I think that's why a lot of people, like me, I like Marvel and DC, but I've always preferred Marvel due to the fact they bring more characters that I can relate more to. Spider-Man and Iron Man's another one of them. He shows the good us humans can do. Good we can do. We can be good people. We can change. And we can always learn from our mistakes. But we can do bad things like sell weapons to people, not be great people, murder or bully, or even cause people to commit suicide. He's a big example of what humans can be, both good and bad. And this movie works well for it. And in my opinion, the idea that they set up the idea of the president of the MCU world is actually really cool. And in fact, the original Nick Fury post-credit scene was going to reference Hugh Jackman's X-Men movies from the 2000s at the time, the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies, and the I believe it was going to reference the Fantastic Four films with Chris Evans and all that. But well, they just didn't bother using that. They also tried to get Tobey Maguire to cameo in the Incredible Hulk, but Sony said nah. And then they were also going to try and get the backstate area to be Empire State University, a college that most of the Marvel characters go to. Sony said nah, so they made Culver University for Incredible Hulk. So yeah. Continuing with that, and number one, my favorite movie of Phase 1 is Avengers. In my opinion, this is my favorite movie of Phase 1, as I really do like this film, and I really think it's a good film. It's a culmination of about the 3 years that the MCU built up to. With Iron Man introducing the MCU, and then introducing us this whole new world. The Incredible Hulk, Iron Man 2, Thor, all introducing new characters and expanding on the world that it created. Same thing with Captain America the First Avenger. They introduced and expanded even more on the universe, and Avengers twisted all that up into a nice bow and pulled it together. And Avengers is done brilliantly by Joss Whedon. I know Joss Whedon has been under very, very much recent and very much true allegations right now about how he acted with people on the Buffy the Vampire Slayer series and many other projects he's been on. But overall, whether you like the guy or not, the guy makes good movies. The guy made a good Avengers film. The film is my third favorite Avengers movie. It was a really well-written story. It brought together everything. It brought together what the MCU was doing. If this movie failed, the MCU would have probably not been so successful from Avengers onward. Even though, yeah, it could still be good. This film was going to tie up everything Marvel had built up to. And the fact that the hype was on. Me and my mum, one day we sat down, watched every trailer, every TV spot for Avengers 2012. And we watched all of them. I even watched all the trailers they made of them in Lego, because I was that hyped. And on that day, I got to go see my third movie I ever saw in cinemas, because the first two ones I ever saw was Cars in 2011, and Kung Fu Panda in 2011, which was very boring. And also my worst performance I've ever been around in the cinema, my worst experience for me, because I was acting like a complete douche towards my dad. But the third film I ever saw there, Avengers 1. After Avengers 1, it became a tradition for me and my dad to go to every Avengers movie together. Didn't matter whether it was recent or late. We went to every Avengers movie together. And if I can, I would do the next Avengers film with my dad. Young Avengers, anything. Because that was our thing. And after that, we obviously went about a few years later to see 2015's Age of Ultron. Then 2018's Infinity War. Then 2019's Endgame. But overall, Avengers ties up the plot lines amazingly and asks the question, could these characters work well together? And of course, the movie answers, hell yes. And we see that awesome roundtable 360 shot of the Avengers all looking badass. And obviously the infamous Mark Ruffalo recasting, which became at first a very iffy, like going, is he alright in the role? And then eventually people went, and just accepted him as the Hulk. Eventually I thought, I actually quite liked Edward Norton, but yeah. I do think Edward Norton would have worked in the Avengers film. But Mark Ruffalo was alright, and Mark Ruffalo would have worked in the Incredible Hulk. Same thing. But yeah. Continuing on, Avengers 1 is my favorite Phase 1 movie, and that's why it shall always be my favorite Phase 1 film. With that, tell me what you guys think in the comments below. How would you rank the Phase 1 movies, and what's your favorite Phase 1 film? Now, if you have any questions, yes, I will be doing a Phase 2 video as my next video, which I'll not leave a link in the description. You guys can just go click on my channel banner and get it yourself. But yeah, nonetheless, tell me what you guys think in the comments below. Make sure to like, subscribe, and share this video with your family and friends. And as always, I shall see you. And yeah. But yeah, nonetheless, this was Movie Master telling you to never stop loving and watching them movies, baby. Anywho, I'm just going to do a rip-off thing and do a palm in your face with a piece of black cloth.